What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jerrett Wilson, joined by Rachel Mogan.
Buongiorno, good sir.
Buongiorno to you as well. How are you this fine day?
Very tired.
Great. Same.
Yes.
Same.
We have both had, or I at least have had, a rough week.
I have as well. Not quite in the same way as you have, I believe, but it's been a busy week. / also trying to get our new pup Birdie all situated at home, and that's not hard. She's been a very good puppy, but like
she
sleeping.
She woofed at me.
She did woof at you, but that's
and
just
then she growled at me.
She's just not
many
used
times
to you.
in a row.
She did that to Fender and us when we first went to go get her, but then she's warmed up to us. She'll warm up to you as well.
And then she tried to take my beer.
She knows what she likes. She likes a good beverage when she sees one.
What a bad pupper.
But we've been trying to get her all acclimated and stuff and sleeping at night, which hasn't gone great, but it's doing better. So sleep's been a little on the lighter side the last few days, but not a big deal because we're still here to talk about some great video games here on Team Chat Podcast, a weekly video game show where, like I said, we talk about games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. New episodes come out on Tuesdays, 9 a.m. Central Time, and you can listen to those across podcast services such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and others. You can also watch a video version of each episode on our YouTube channel, which I am pleased to say
Indeed
has hit the 200 subscribers.
Well, bam.
Too bad we don't have like sirens and like an air horn and all that stuff to shoot off. Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Right before
we gotta get one of those like switchboards that the radio DJs have.
We really should.
God, that would be so funny.
But yeah, we hit the 200 right before episode 200. This is episode 199. So episode 200, we're planning a special little celebration for that. So I know this is the Tuesday before, and I think it's this weekend. We'll send out more details if we haven't seen them already about it as we just finalize like time and everything. But we're going to do like a special like stream and to do a live episode for episode 200 because those are always super fun. And what better way to celebrate such a big milestone other than a live episode? And then we're going to spend the afternoon after that doing some streaming and playing some different games. So it'll be a lot of fun. Pay attention to our social media. We'll get the word out there as best we can to everybody.
We should spend the entire stream not doing our episode and not doing video games. We should just sit there and read out the titles of other podcasts that started the same year that we did that didn't make it this far. Would that be a little too mean-spirited?
A little bit. We're all in this together, you know?
No, we're not. It's every man and woman for themselves.
No, that's how you get bigger and better is by helping other people along the way.
It's by stomping on the necks of those around you until they suffocate.
I don't think so, but still, it's we'll think about it. But so tune in for that as you see the information come through. We'll let everybody know. But you can also find us on social media where you can see all those updates about our 200 episode 200 celebration, such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can join us on our Discord server. Links for all that are in the description below. And finally, if you want to help us make the show bigger and better so we can get to episode 300, you can go over to patreon.com/teamchatpodcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show. And in return, we'll give you cool perks like getting the episodes early, access to our Patreon exclusive show for the first 2 weeks, Team Chit Chat, as well as getting audio and video versions early and all that stuff before the general Tuesday release. But if you can't do that, that's no big deal. We totally appreciate everyone who listens, and we would just really love it if you would give us a subscribe, write us a review on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast service of your choice, or tell your friends. You know, all that stuff helps us make the show bigger and better by getting the word out there, the good word of Team Chat Podcast. So we appreciate all of our listeners, viewers, subscribers, all of you out there taking the time to listen to the show. We heart you. Heart emojis. Before we get into the main topic of the day, let's get a little bit of what's news about what's coming out soon and in the upcoming weeks.
There's so much coming out, and it's just too much, and nobody has the money or the time required to be able to keep up.
We're starting to get close to those big releases.
You know, it is times like this where I sincerely envy wealthy housewives. Because, like, they do have the time and the money. Like, they can afford the in-home childcare. And then they can also afford all of the video games. And then they can just play them. And it's like, I really hope that that's how older video game women be living. Because that's how I would like to someday live.
I'd love to live that way, too.
Yeah, right? Where can we get sugar mamas and papas?
Sure.
I don't think that's
all
what
the
they're
sugar
called,
mama papas.
but whatever. All right, so coming out as of this episode will air in March, so we are officially into March.
Yes, March 3rd.
Yes, correct. So out today, as of March 3rd, we've got Grand Blue Fantasy Versus for the PlayStation 4. Coming out on March 6th, Murder by Numbers for the Nintendo Switch and PC. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX comes out for the Switch as well. So does Yes, Your Grace for PC, which
sounds like
sounds
something
like it
I
was
need to
made
investigate.
for you. Yeah, you need to check that out. I really hope it's very up my Lord Jerrett's alley.
Great.
Yes, Your Grace comes out for PC on March 11th. March 11th.
Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Ori and the Will of the Wisps. You boofed it up there,
I'm so
friend.
excited. So excited for that.
Ori and the Will of the Wisps for Xbox One and PC. I'm going to have to find a way to play it. Can I borrow your... You've got a PC now.
I do.
Give me your Xbox.
But that's what I'm playing it on.
Oh, God. Okay.
Just come over and you should just watch me play it or something. I'm probably honestly thinking about streaming it as I play it.
That would be a good
lot of fun.
idea. Oh, man. All right. So anyways,
If
Ori and the
time
Will of the
allows.
Wisps, Xbox One and PC on March 11th. On March 13th, we have My Hero 1's Justice 2 for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. And also on the 13th, Neo 2 hits the PlayStation 4.
Nice.
And that's everything coming out in early to mid-March.
So speaking of Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I got very, very excited earlier last week because Gareth Coker, the composer for Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Ori and the Blind Forest, tweeted out a track list without titles, but he's tweeted out the track list of Ori and the Will of the Wisps. And I'm pleased to say it's a whopping 60 songs.
What could that possibly mean?
Well, he says...
What does this mean, Gareth?
So
Mr.
he said
Coker?
that also in his tweet, all he said is soon with the track list with all the names wiped out. And somebody, Austin Wintory, actually responded and said, good Lord, so many tracks, to which Gareth Coker responded again, this is not just a drag and drop operation from game files to OST. Track count is severely reduced from game files by stitching together. It's a good representation of what anyone who finished the game will experience following new characters and themes, environments, and flow. But he's also saying that there is just a whole lot more to this. Like, this game is in bigger scope and scale than Ori and the Blind Forest.
Now that is the most so both the soundtrack being extra long. Obviously, we both love the Ori and the Blind Forest soundtrack for very good reason. It's phenomenal.
It's great.
So A, more soundtrack, huzzah. But also B, more game, also huzzah.
Yes.
Because I did have some small complaints about Ori and the Blind Forest, but one of them that we actually didn't talk about on the episode is that it was just too short. I could have used double what the game's length was. So hopefully that is close to, or maybe even in excess of, the case for Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
From everything he's saying, I can't find the exact tweet now as I'm going through it because, but yes, he definitely was saying that it's gonna be bigger, and it's gonna have bigger scope and scale. That's why it has such a long soundtrack, which just I'm all about.
Very
all
excited.
about that musical goodness because
Can't
the
wait.
soundtrack for Ori and the Blind Forest is exceptional.
Did you tell me that you got the collector's edition?
I did get the collector's
With that
edition.
sweet vinyl?
I don't know if it comes with the vinyl, but it at least comes with the soundtrack.
Oh,
so,
that's
so
what I
I'll
meant.
be having
Okay,
it. Yeah,
cool.
so I'm all about that stuff.
Man.
But this is a perfect segue into what we're going to be talking about because, a few months or over a year ago, I guess, we ranked our top 10 video games of all time. And we did that in a series of 3 episodes, talking about our different ones and putting together our lists and
Which
sharing
were
it all
very
with you.
fun. I had a good time
I had a
doing
good
those.
time with that too. And then actually at our live episode for Extra Life this year, I think we updated it. Yeah, we did. It's just because we had played new games and to see if anything in our rankings changed.
Right.
Well, we talked about soundtracks a lot on this show. You can go find all those in the. We'll be sure to have those. I actually have them on a special playlist on our YouTube page where you can go find those pretty quick. Where you can see all the rest of it. Where we talked about some of our favorite soundtracks, but we've never ranked them. We've never said this is my top 10 list of favorite soundtracks of all time. And so we decided to tackle this, what has now become a monstrous task. We set out doing this when we were like, easy peasy.
Yeah, we both said it was gonna be
It's going to be
easy.
easy. Today, as we're trying to finalize everything and get things together for these lists, we're both messaging each other back and forth being like, what the hell?
There was a lot of furor in our private hosts only team chat channel on the Discord of us just being like, this is so hard.
Because
This is
of the-
impossible.
Because and the what makes it that way for me is because you can consume so many more soundtracks so much faster than you can play through a game.
Yeah.
So the list of soundtracks we've listened to, either one-offs or loved and listened to a bajillion times, is a massive list.
I mean, I've got soundtracks on my list, and I call it a short list, even though it is already in excess of 10. So
same.
I am
So is
having
mine.
a struggle bus of a time. But a number of the games on that list are ones that I personally have not played. Just a huge fan of the soundtrack.
Same. I've got a couple on here as well. So it's one of those things. So what we decided, because here we sit doing this episode, I'm still iffy on my 10 and number 9 slots. 8 is, I think, in the right place as well. But after that, I think I'm pretty set and got those pretty locked in. Fortunately, I still have 2 episodes to go before we'll finalize that, because we won't continue this in our episode 200's live episode. We're going to take a break to do something fun there, and then we'll come back to this in the next following 2 episodes. So I've got a little bit of time to narrow that out. So what we're going to do a little bit different is, instead of just being like, here are our picks and go, we're going to talk about what we have is the ones that are vying for those few spots. Because today we want to try to tackle 10 through 7. And then we're going to talk about those games, and we're going to discuss them amongst ourselves, and so through that discussion, hopefully lock in those last few spots.
I mean, think about this episode as kind of like a live brainstorming session.
Pretty much, because
right now we're still a little frazzled.
Yeah.
We're not really sure like how to solidify these daunting lists, and it's like, how are we going to do this? We just have to hash it out.
We absolutely do.
We got to just beat it out of ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yes, this one might be a little different than what you've experienced with our soundtrack episodes in the past, where there might not be the interludes where we play the like samples of the track, because we're probably going to like literally play them off our phones for each other to hear and all that stuff. We'll hold them up to the next to the mic so you can still hear it and all that stuff. But so that's why we wanted this episode to be. And then for the remainder, 6 through 4 and then 3 through 1, those will be the more like, here are our songs, here are our samples that we want to show off of why this one is so good, and we'll have a little bit more deep dive into those. But for these, to really solidify this list, we figured we'd try it out this way, have a little fun with the format, and see where it goes. So
before we get into that, though,
sure,
there is kind of something that I want to do just for fun for me.
Okay.
And also to kind of like get my thinking process a-flowing, because part of the...
You're going to shotgun that beer.
I'm going to shotgun that beer, obviously.
I'm going to slowly sip on my wine. We're refined today.
Yeah. God, it looks so orange from here.
It really does. Maybe
Why
it's the
does
lights.
It look like?
I don't know.
Yeah, That's very suspicious.
But pink is out,
Yeah. Anyway, so part of the process for me, at least in terms of narrowing down such a wide field, is all process of elimination.
Right.
It's lining up all the options and then just shoving aside the ones that I can instantly be like, no, 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 and no. Mm-hmm. So something that helped me in this process is I went back to my updated top 10 games list, and I looked at that for a bit of inspiration, and some of them were, ones that will hold over onto my list of top 10 soundtracks, but most of them were not.
Right.
So some of the ones that I thought were kind of interesting to be like, oh man, I rated that a top 10 game of all time, but it's not on the soundtrack list. And we've always talked about how core and important soundtracks are to us as gamers. So it's like, that's really interesting that a game that I think doesn't even have a top 10 soundtrack could still be considered top 10 material. And number 2 on that list was Portal 2.
Yeah.
And the Portal series is so interesting because, well, for many, many, many reasons.
Right.
Portal is just a fantastic game. It's a fantastic series, even though there are only technically 2 of them, plus that dumb bridge builder game that nobody wanted. Thanks for
that
nothing.
Was mobile, right? It was a mobile game?
It was something like that. Not the thanks, Gearbox. Not what people wanted. Whatever. Wait, it's Valve, isn't it?
Yeah,
Valve.
not
There we
Gearbox.
go. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking there. Anyways,
Valve has the gear-looking
I
faucet
think
on
that's
the back
why
of the
I
dude's
thought
head.
about it. Anyways, whatever.
Similar imagery.
So Portal 2 has a couple of Portal and Portal 2 both have like a couple of very iconic songs that are considered, part of the in-game humor to a certain extent. The ending song of Portal, the cake is a lie thing, is really core to the Portal series. But I just wouldn't rank any of Portal's like actual soundtrack as being especially noteworthy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure somebody out there is frothing at the mouth right now.
Unsubscribing from everything, about to write
hearing me
us the
say
worst
that.
review.
But I've probably just set us up for some massive
go and offset
failure.
that with a lot of positive reviews.
I just can't think of a single track that isn't one of the 2 that is very famous from both games and endings, more or less,
Right.
that is worthy of being remembered. Sorry.
No, I totally get what you're saying, because that was a big thing for me too. Like, I looked at my list and we talked about it before we got going. I think I have 3 of the games I have locked down. 3 are on my top 10 list of favorite games of all time. And so it's just a lot of it, because for me, it was like, okay, there are so many soundtracks that like I love one specific song for.
But that's
or like
not
the
a whole
main
soundtrack.
Theme. Exactly.
And
it's not the whole
ranking
soundtrack.
the entire soundtracks. That's the difference here.
So for me, and kind of going through this and how I was ranking them in my head and being like, okay, should these even be in contention or not, are the ones that I would go back to and listen through the whole thing all at once. Not just the ones that I have like 3 tracks selected and being like, okay, and they're just in my main soundtrack mix. These are ones that I'm like, I want to listen to this. I'm in the mood to listen to this game soundtrack, and I'm going to listen to the whole album.
Exactly.
And so if I had ones like that, those immediately pushed them to the top.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree.
Because those are games that means then that those games, the music captures me in a different way. It keeps me attention. It can either hold my attention through the entire album, not where I'm not like, okay, I'm tired of hearing this, I want to move on to something else. Or it has some like special benefit, like when I'm editing or working or doing something like that. It's something that can like fit specific situations where I'm just like, I need this music right now.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I was looking at it when I was going through my rankings.
That's a great way to do it too. A few of the other games that I considered that didn't make the cut, and I think we both kind of agree on this one, the Life is Strange games.
Right, yeah.
Specifically,
Didn't
the
make
only
the cut
one
for
that
me
we
either.
like, Life is Strange, the first one, not the second one. We'll just ignore it entirely. It has a lot of featured tracks that are from modern pop music and a lot of, I guess you would call it more like indie music,
Yeah.
kind of indie rock. None of that is even stuff that I would listen to in my regular life. Overall, I think the Life is Strange soundtrack fits the in-game theme, but I just would never be like, I'm going to listen to a video game soundtrack. Let me boot up Life is Strange.
Yeah, same.
That's
I'm the
never going to
same-
be one of
same
the
way.
choices. And also Breath of the Wild. So like Breath of the Wild and Stardew Valley. And Stardew Valley, I would even argue, has a really good soundtrack.
It's on my list of not on the actual list,
Okay.
but it's one that I was seriously considering also.
Yeah, and I considered it too, but then when I really thought about it, I thought about, okay, well, which tracks from Stardew Valley really kind of grab me and really hold my attention and stand out in my mind? And I honestly couldn't think of any. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I actually don't, it's not as prevalent in my mind as so many others are that just instantly crowded it out. So it's not even that in the case of Stardew Valley that it's a bad soundtrack. It's a good one. It's
very good.
It just wasn't good enough to hold up to so many others that are stellar.
And I almost included Stardew Valley on my list because not only does it have a few good tracks that do stick out in my mind, like the main soundtrack, and I actually do have one I want to play just a little bit because it's one that I have added to like my playlists and everything. But also I was thinking about adding it because again, the soundtrack for Stardew Valley to me is an accomplishment, another mark of accomplishment for this game by Concerned Ape. Because again, Stardew Valley made by one guy. He developed the thing. The soundtrack's by him too. And it's a massively long soundtrack.
Yeah, and it's
so
really
like,
good. So
and
the
it's
fact
really
that
good.
it's good and it's made by one guy and there's so much of it, that absolutely is an achievement. That's
Right.
amazing.
So the one that I do like is Mines, the Lava Dwellers. There's actually like 4 or 5 different, or actually a whole bunch of songs that
a
are
lot
Mines,
of the music
different
from the
things.
Mines is some of the better stuff.
But so, let me see. So you got that. Ooh, mystery. What are we going to find? What gems will we unearth? What monsters will we fight? We must go explore.
If I have to kill one more bat, I'm going to kill somebody.
For real, right? So it
Freaking
starts
bats.
off, gets that little beat, gets that little beat in there. Okay, so you're dealing with this. You're like, you know what? This is nice. This is soothing. I like this. But then you skip ahead a little bit here. Let me see if I can find this. Because it has this moment where it like kind of hits. Let me see if I can get there.
I mean, I'm having a good time
I'm
just
having a
jamming
great time
right
too.
now. Don't bother me, bro. I'm busy. Let me hold my beer.
Okay, no, this isn't it yet. It's a little farther on. Here we go. Calms down. Like, oh, the adventure must be over. But wait,
I'm ready.
I sense something's building. Oh, it's getting a little more adventurous. I'm having a little bit more fun. Getting amped. Sorry, I thought it was going to be a little closer. Here we go. Here we go.
Yes,
Now
I
it's a
love this
fucking
track. Oh, this track is amazing. You picked one of my favorite ones.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Right?
I'm
So-
very jazzed.
You get things like that from Stardew Valley, and I was like, so that immediately was for me. I was just like, okay, this one.
I actually didn't know the name of it, but I think that's my favorite track
It's so
because
good.
of like when it takes that turn into that sort of like, it's all electronic music, but it kind of
Right.
sounds like a guitar in a certain sense,
Almost
like a
or
synth guitar.
I was thinking like a sitar. Almost.
Ooh,
Not
yeah.
sitar.
Yeah,
but
you're kinda
kind of like has
closer.
that
It has
Middle
that
Eastern
twang
twang
to
it.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like that song for that one, and then like even the main theme gets stuck in my head a lot too. And so but then for the sheer amount of music there is, and again all done by one person, I was kind of like, man, that might put Stardew Valley. And as I talk about it, maybe it does put Stardew Valley. On
Maybe
my list.
we have to rethink this again.
But
Damn it.
but no, I actually had that same one. So what is one then? So if we're trying to fill our number 10 slot right now from your like ones, the runner ups, what do you think has the strongest case for filling it?
Gosh, okay, so of the runner-ups, I know that at least one definitely breaks the top 10, and it really probably belongs in the 10 through 7s. And that's because it's a game it's a very divisive game, I'll tell you that much right out the front gate. It's a very divisive game in and of itself, and the soundtrack is almost equally as divisive, but it's one that, it's the kind of thing that the entire soundtrack as a whole doesn't add up to what the individual parts achieve. So this is a case of particular tracks being so stellar that it still qualified it on my list. But when I'm looking at the entire album, at the entire soundtrack, I'm like, I don't know about this. And it's Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh, okay.
So as I was doing research for this and trying to get some inspiration and jog my memory, because we play so many games, there are easily games that we just forget about, even though they're amazing and we just forget that we've played them. Final Fantasy VIII, I never forget because it's crazy. It is a crazy game. But when I was doing research into best 100 video game soundtracks of all time, almost all of them listed Final Fantasy VII. Almost none of them listed Final Fantasy VIII. And I was like, this is a travesty because 8's soundtrack, I personally think, is better. Maybe not better as a whole, but certain soundtracks of it, they just blow it out of the water for me. And one of those is Don't Be Afraid.
Ooh, hit me with that track.
Yeah,
I
let me
want to
see
hear
if
a
I
little
can
bit of this.
hit you with this track.
Ooh,
Right? It's got trumpets in there.
yeah. It's got I feel like I'm being chased. I do like its very electronic sound, you can obviously tell that's electronic strings.
I'm just messing with the mics. I'm just having fun.
does mess with
Jared's
my
probably going to have to edit that out later. But so actually, Final Fantasy VIII was the first Final Fantasy game to use a full orchestra for certain tracks. So when most people think of Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack, they think of the intro, cutscene theme. I'm forgetting the Latin. Liberi Fatali.
Okay.
I think it means fated children in the Latin. But that intro track is the one that people most highly associate with Final Fantasy VIII, and it's like the Phethos, Lusek, Wesok, Vinosec? Anyways, the Latin is crazy, and I'm certain I said it wrong. Don't roast me in the comments. I will cry. But that's the one that people think of because it's got a full choir. It's got a full orchestration. And it was the first Final Fantasy game to do that. And of course, the composer is Nobuo Uematsu. So he's very famous. He's done many, many of Final Fantasy's soundtracks. And I think that he does some of his best work in Final Fantasy VIII, and it just doesn't get the credit it deserves because the game was crazy and a lot of people hated it and just as many people loved it. So I feel like its reputation kind of overshadowed its potential. Now, that being said, in addition to Don't Be Afraid, Man with the Machine Gun is obviously one of my personal favorites.
One before, I
and
think.
we featured it on one of our episodes before, and it's just phenomenal.
Right.
It's got many other tracks that I think are just really stellar, but that is balanced by a fair amount of tracks from the game that are just very blasé, that maybe don't fit the environment super well, that are just downright boring.
Yeah.
So it's an example of balance in a certain way, maybe not necessarily to its benefit, but I still feel like I think Final Fantasy VIII might be my number 10 because I feel like it just barely made the cut, but it's got so much holding it back that it can't quite reach that level of greatness. Spoiler alert, Final Fantasy VII isn't even on my list.
Oh my God.
Come at me, bros.
That's one thing too. So like another thing that was making this difficult too. So the one that I have, here are, how many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I have 7 possible runners up for the 10 and 9 spots. The one that I'm most...
Wait, how many runners up for these spots?
I have 7 that I'm trying to decide if they make the cut
spots.
into 10. Yeah, that's why I got locked in this. I'm going to just go ahead and read them out here. So you can help me out here with this. Donkey Kong Country.
Ooh.
Deus Ex Human Revolution.
Oh.
Journey. Horizon Zero Dawn.
Wait a second, you put Journey that low on the list?
So here's the thing.
Stab you in the
Journey
kidneys
is amazing.
when you're not looking.
Journey has fantastic, not only beautiful music, beautiful vocalizations in it as well. It's an all-around stellar track. The one thing I think that hurts it not getting in my list yet, and this is me totally taking it, I have not played the game yet.
You're about to catch these hands, son.
Let me catch them because I deserve it. You know what I mean? Because like I should have played this game by now.
Oh man!
And that's one of the things that's keeping it there. Some soundtracks. Now I will say I was born for this. Oh my God. Like probably one of my top 10 tracks.
I like Nascence.
Nascence is a great one as well.
Nascence, I was born for this.
We actually opened Nascence with the very first music episode because we talked about Journey back then, and that was the song we like opened the whole episode with.
Oh, it was such a good example.
But so Journey, so that's the only reason Journey hasn't necessarily taken it there. It's fantastic, but I feel like compared to some of the other games I have on my list, and they're not only their nostalgia factor for some of them, and also just the impact of having the game tied with the music keeps them ahead of Journey. Not saying Journey's bad. If we open this up to like top 20, it'd be in there for sure.
Okay.
So that's kind of the thing.
So I'll go on ahead and say that Journey is also on my list.
I wondered if we should have...
Definitely no. We shouldn't have compared.
Okay, good.
I think this is more interesting this way.
I just remember when we did our top 10, and I said Life is Strange is like my number 5, and you were like, "Damn it, that's my number 3."
No, so I mean, it wouldn't have mattered anyways. It's not like this is communal property. We each have our own lists,
right? When our own reasons for liking them.
My problem is I can't figure out where to put Journey because it's definitely on there, and I think that it's probably not in the 10 through 7s. I just haven't quite decided yet. So
You've got a couple weeks to figure that out.
Yeah, I've got a couple of weeks to figure it out. And the reasons being that are very much what we've kind of already talked about, that the game is short. So it is kind of a shorter soundtrack overall, which in my book hurts it a little bit. But, you know, duration isn't necessarily an indication of quality. And the quality of Austin Wintory's masterpiece, the Journey soundtrack, is off the charts. I still think it is one of the most beautiful, complete albums that if you have played the game, I think it has so much more emotional impact. So kind of just already saying all of that, it's definitely not in this 10 through 7s. Like I've already made up my mind. It's already higher than that. And I think on like my short list, which I didn't order, it was like in the 1 through 5s.
Oh, okay.
So I know it's probably going to be higher than that. I just have to figure out exactly where it goes. And once we eventually get to that point, I'll definitely want to feature tracks from it here on the episode. But for now, I kind of want to save them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when we do get to them, I want to like really have them make a big impact.
Oh yeah. Then after Journey was Horizon Zero Dawn, Red Dead Redemption 2, Stardew Valley.
Red Dead 2.
Okay, so my case for Red Dead 2.
All the banjos. I'm just kidding. I love the banjo.
Red Dead 2, the music of it is one of my favorite things of the game. Oh. It honestly, the music makes me want to play the game again. And that in my head makes a pretty strong case for it.
It does. So Barbie's Horse Adventure for Men didn't quite do it for you?
I liked Red Dead Redemption 2. I know I started off slow with it, but by the time I really got into it, I had a really good time in the game. And now as I go back and listen to the soundtrack, because the soundtrack, the published album of it came out much later after the game did. And so having finished the game, then having the soundtrack to go back on and because it took me so long to finish the game, they both kind of like came out at the same time. Like I finished about the same time the soundtrack did. So I still had these really fresh memories of it. And I was like, oh man, I remember this part. But then also just, I talked about it a couple episodes back, just more the orchestration of it and how it's a blend of more modern takes on some instruments, like the drum percussion sections are a way more modern way of playing. But it's tied in with these Old West themes, Old West sounds, such as like the guitars, even banjos in some cases, and everything's like this. To just really the fiddle and everything like that, to really make this very modern West feel of a song that absolutely fits within the game itself, but then can totally be enjoyed on its own merits, separate from the game. This may have decided for. I know I said this about Stardew Valley also, but this is why it's so hard. This is why getting there is so hard. The one that I had sitting at number 10 was Donkey Kong Country, because I'm going to go ahead and say it's spoiler. Donkey Kong Country is the oldest soundtrack. I
didn't even think to like do years for mine. I didn't even consider it.
It's just the oldest one that was in my list. The majority of these, actually, let me look at this. I think all of these are probably within the 2000s.
I have at least.
Yes, all of them except Donkey Kong Country are from the 2000s.
I have 2 that technically, one of which is a barely. No, actually, I guess it does count because it doesn't matter where it was first published. It matters just that it was published because that doesn't change the soundtrack. So I have 2 that are from before the 2000s, and I hold that they are probably not going to make an appearance on this episode because they're easily 1 through 6 quality to some extent, I think.
So the thing is with this, Donkey Kong Country is because it is one of the most well-known and well-celebrated video game soundtracks.
Weiss, isn't it?
It's David Wise. Yeah. It's like he great composer, made some stellar tracks. In fact, everybody should go watch. I watched it recently. Everybody should go watch again. What is it? Oh, you just shared, I'm blanking on the name, 8-Bit Music Theory?
8-Bit Music Theory.
They did an excellent breakdown of the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack.
So for all of you that don't know, 8-Bit Music Theory is a YouTube channel that does breakdowns of exactly what it sounds like, the music theory behind why video game soundtracks sound a certain way, give us certain emotions, blah, blah, blah. And it's done in such a more informed and intelligent way than Jerrett and I can ever manage because regrettably we do not have the actual music theory knowledge base.
I can play some instruments kind of, but you asked me to like really get into the theory. No, my piano teacher would yell at me.
Shameless plug for 8-Bit Music Theory. They do amazing work. Someone's got to do it, and thank God it's them.
But so that's where I came in on this. I was like, okay, but should that be the reason? I like several songs like Gangbang Galleon, Bonus Room Blitz. Those are the ones when I was listening to it again earlier today, I was like, oh man, I remembered this one from when I played it as a kid, and when I replayed it recently when we talked about it for our favorite platformer series, I was like, as soon as I heard those tracks, I was all in it. I remembered them. But it's not one that I listen to over and over again. I go back to listen to those specific tracks.
You know, I was actually curious to know if you were going to put Donkey Kong Country 2. Is it Country 2 or the first one?
Which one?
That you're talking about right now.
The first one, Donkey Kong Country.
I was curious if you were going to do Donkey Kong Country or Tropical Freeze.
See, same thing.
Because I feel like Tropical Freeze's soundtrack, at least maybe it's just because it's more to my tastes. I think Tropical Freeze has a phenomenal soundtrack.
And that's where I think I had to draw the line. It's like, yes, I may draw some ire from my top 10 list not having some of these 8-bit classics or, these chiptune classics. But, and everything on there. But that's not what I listen to and not what I go to when I'm looking for a soundtrack to listen to. So I kind of think that talking it out with you here a little bit has knocked Donkey Kong Country from it.
Okay, another small rant. If you're watching the video, you may have just seen me silently do a big finger wag back in my day. And it's actually in the opposite direction of what you think. Again, referring to these lists of top soundtracks of all time. This is one of my few fiery opinions that I think more people will probably agree with if they search within their souls than are willing to admit. So many of them had Ocarina of Time in the top 10. And I'm just like,
nah, bruh,
it's not that good. It's not that good.
And I'm not saying by not including these aren't great. Like I said, Donkey Kong Country is phenomenal. And even like the old Super Mario World ones, like the athletic theme that's so popular, it's like those are great songs.
And I get
but the soundtrack as a whole doesn't hold up for me.
Get it. I understand the appeal, but even in terms of older Zelda games, I still would have put either A Link to the Past because of its extremely appropriate atmospheric qualities, or even Minish Cap. The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, such an underrated game for starters, but B, had such a delightful soundtrack that, much like Link to the Past, just matched its atmosphere perfectly and also sounded good. And I know that to an extent, Ocarina of Time is, kind of a victim of its time, being that it's an older game and it doesn't really have the quality that we're looking at nowadays.
Right.
But even so, I mean, there are tracks that are extremely memorable and that hold a very nostalgic place in my heart from all of the Legend of Zelda games, but I've just never once thought back to Ocarina of Time and been like, man, dude, best soundtrack of all time.
Yeah.
Never. And I never will. It's not something that's going to happen. Come at me.
So the other one that I was like having a hard time, and even now that I think about it, Deus Ex Human Revolution, great. I like it. I like it for its main theme because the main theme is what played in the trailer that I saw for the game, the reveal trailer, which is a phenomenal trailer and probably the trailer I've watched more than any other trailer. It's so good.
Is that what you do with your spare time?
Absolutely. Just rewatch trailers. But honestly, going through this and talking about this, I got to say, I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to take the number 10 spot.
Really?
I think it's going to do it.
Scandal.
And let me just play a little snippet here so you can kind of, no, go away. I don't want to sign up for Apple Music right now.
Are we going to get a sweet ad? I hope so.
Nah, this is stuff. I own this one. Again, I own it. So like, that's a pretty good indication of of how I feel about it.
A fair point.
So let me see. Because one of my favorite tracks from this one is Sadie Adler, Widow.
Well, while you're doing that, start thinking about how you're going to...
Or Miss Sadie Adler, Widow.
Miss Sadie Adler.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, so here we go. Starts off with a great string. Whoops. I'm trying to get it to like pull up, not be. So it starts off with a slow one, and Woody Jackson and Bill Elm in this just did a phenomenal job of creating these themes for everyone.
I'm a sucker for the cello.
And Sadie Adler in the game you meet her at the very beginning. Her farm is being burned by outlaws. Her husband is murdered by them, and she is taken into your gang, the Dutch van der Linde gang, and she is has just like this burning passion of revenge.
Much like her house burned.
Exactly. And so it's like, it starts off slow, and this is like, she has these moments, but then she's also tend to just throw herself into these wild situations and just without thought for her own personal safety, really. And I think when the song like really picks up is when it highlights that. So I'm going to skip ahead to that. Getting a much more frantic string.
Ooh, this is fun. I feel like you've played the first part for me before, but this is new.
Yeah. And then it's going to even get a little bit more, the string's going to get more high-pitched, a little more frenetic. It's just a driving beat of a song, and I love it so much. So I think for that and just some other reasons in there, and then not only does it have this one, it also has like the music inspired by kind of one, which has, again, an incredible song by D'Angelo, Unshaken. It also features tracks from Willie Nelson, Cruel World, even a cover by Josh Homme of Gonna Forget It Again. No one knows what it... Queens
Drake.
of the Stone Age.
Oh, that's what I said.
The lead singer of Queens of the Stone Age. And then some other just great, like, again, one song, Mountain Banjo, is great. And so I just think overall it's an exceptional soundtrack. Talking about it now, locks it in for sure. Number 10, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay. Wow. So we actually made some progress.
So yeah,
or I should say you made some progress.
Well, didn't you lock in Final Fantasy VIII?
Yes, Final
number
Fantasy
10?
VIII is my number 10.
Okay.
Now, here's another one that I think you in particular are going to be able to really help me with.
Okay.
Because I put it on my short list. I think, again, it was unordered at the time. I think I thought of it at like number 6.
Ooh.
So it was actually pretty high up there in terms of ones that I thought of very quickly. But much like you and Journey, it's a game that I personally haven't played. It's a game series that I don't play. It's a game series that I love to hate on. It's not Uncharted.
Okay.
Good try. I would never go that far. It's a game series that I love to jokingly hate on. I recognize that it's good and I get it. It's Halo 3 ODST.
Oh, this one was in consideration for me as well.
Good. I mean, this is a soundtrack that I'll just load up like the full soundtrack on YouTube where it doesn't even cycle through the different songs. It's just like the full 5 hours of Halo 3 ODST. And I'm like, yes, finally. Now, we're going to have to maybe pause the episode real quick because there's a particular track that I want to find, but I don't remember what it's called.
I want to take a guess.
Yes, go for it.
Because it's one of my favorite ones from the soundtrack. I'm pulling it up right now. ODST was one that I was very much like, or all of Halo in general. Because yes, Halo makes an appearance in my list as well.
Yeah.
But I was just like, what track? Which one? They're all so good.
They're all good.
Even the ones for like Halo 4 and Halo 5, like I think their soundtracks are great as well, even though those games weren't as well loved as some of the other ones. Halo Reach, have you listened to Reach?
No.
It's a really good one too.
I should listen to Reach.
And it's got like some good like 7-8 minute songs on there. That's great. The one that I like is Deference for Darkness.
That's the one that I was just playing. Maybe it has to.
But you got to skip like halfway through for the part that I really like. Yes. For that like it's
what a fun track.
It's so good.
I'm saying the word fun, but obviously it's meant to be in this very dark, dreary setting.
Right.
And in a certain way, it does kind of evoke that while at the same time being a little bit more upbeat. And I use that term kind of lightly because in context, Halo 3...
You're probably fighting.
Yeah, it's not an upbeat game. Now, this actually is not the one that I was thinking of.
But that's so good.
It's so good still. Gosh,
I'm glad you included this ODST because ODST didn't make my list, but I'm glad that you have it.
I wish I could remember. I don't think it's this one. I'm never going to remember exactly which track it is because I can only look at it in the list, like where the time ticker is on YouTube, and I know where to skip to by sight, but not like what it's on actually called. So I think that's partially why Halo 3 ODST.
You get lost in it.
It's such a good song.
I like the not xylophone, but just the
crystalline tones.
The crystalline tones,
because I think they're electronically generated. I also don't think that's a xylophone.
No, I don't think that. I know the xylophone wasn't right. That's just the closest thing I could think to.
Marimba. How about that?
There we go. Sure.
It could be either. It's probably neither.
But no, again, I love the themes and tones that are mixed into ODST.
Gosh, okay. As soon as I find that track, I will let you know.
Circle back around to it?
Yeah, we'll circle back around. But so
is it on your is it your number 9 then? Or do you think or is there still one that you're thinking like, oh man. So like, because I know my 8 from after my next one, after I lock in my number 9, I know everything after that.
See, I think I'm struggling a lot more than you because I don't know. I mean, Halo 3 is like pretty. I want to include it, but I don't know if upon further review if it will get crowded out because some of the other ones that I think are actually going to be kind of towards the bottom as well, simply because I have a harder time justifying them on like a critiquing level.
Right.
One, you know it.
Awesome.
You love it. I never stop talking about it. The masterpiece, released in Japan in 1999, but the year 2000 in North America. Best underrated JRPG of all time, The Legend of Dragoon. You did it!
I got there.
So The Legend of Dragoon, I absolutely, like my heart and soul, want to include it on the list. But then my brain is like, you're kind of reaching there.
But is it that great?
Is it that great? The reason that I'm struggling so hard to separate it is very strongly linked to nostalgia. But also, this is another case of many tracks on this particular game's soundtrack, and I'm not even sure if I could find like a compiled soundtrack for The Legend of Dragoon, so maybe actually while I'm blabbering I'll be googling that as well. So The Legend of Dragoon's menu soundtrack in particular is so iconic for me. Let's see if I can get you the menu music, because it is just, you're not gonna like it. Like, I'm gonna play it for you and you're gonna be like, well, this sucks. And I'm going to be like, you know what? You're probably right. It probably does suck, but I don't care.
But suck it. I love it.
Yeah, you suck it. It's one of my favorites. So here we go. All right. So this is complete OST.
Oh no, you're never going to find it.
The ending song, If You Still Believe, it makes me cry. I love it.
Feels like you've got some good emotion tied into this soundtrack, though.
Yeah, I've got many emotions. Now, whether or not they're good is kind of up for debate. Oh, please let some kind soul in the comments have linked. Yes! First of all, shout out to everyone in the YouTube comments who goes through and actually tags at what point
for real.
each of the songs starts, because not all of them have them. And it's just terrible when they don't. All right, so now we're going to stall while I look for the thingy that we can edit at the menu theme. All right, so this is the menu theme.
I don't hate that.
That like beat, that like ba ba. I can't get it out of my head.
You know what that sounds a whole lot like to me? Is the song that plays as the backing music for one of the fake movies at the beginning of Tropic Thunder.
That's such
Do you know which one of the devil, the Satan's Alley?
That's such a strange reference to make.
See, man, we're going to bounce all over the place in this.
We are. So the thing is, I feel like Legend of Dragoon might be either a 9 or 8 spot. And that's because I do feel like as a whole, the game has majority tracks that are really solid and really good, even given their time. So another good example would be for, here we go, the Crystal Palace. A fantastic.
Also from Legend of Dragoon.
Also from the Legend of Dragoon. So it kind of mixes like these old pixelated, not very good quality tones, but it just, in general, makes for an environment that feels both very fantastical and also dire. Because you, in the context of The Legend of Dragoon, you are in a world that is very much about to just be super destroyed. Like, everybody's gonna die if the thing happens that you think is gonna happen.
Right.
So it's supposed to have a little bit of a darker theme once you get to disc 2, where the action really picks up out of the 4 discs available. So it takes this turn into kind of a more melancholic, dire theme overall, and a lot of the tracks reflect that. So there's, a couple of like the forest outside of Bale has a particular, I think it's called maybe the Whispering Woods, has a rock solid track. The intro music, the ending theme music, the menu music, and many of the standard battle themes. And that's the thing that I think sticks with me the most about why The Legend of Dragoon made this list, is that your general music that plays in the background of life in the game, like scrub battles, like random enemies that just spawn on the world map that aren't anything. It's not like they're bosses. Their tracks don't have to be amazing, but it's the kind of track that just gets deep into your brain and will not leave. And even though it's relatively short and it's just the kind of track that is meant to loop and loop and loop, you can still be jamming to it an hour later. You're like,
that's why there's so many like extended cuts of these songs.
This is such a bop. It's that kind of track. So I feel like Legend of Dragoon has stiff competition, though, from another game in its same genre that I'm also really struggle bussing to place. Can you guess what it is?
Same genre. Oh, Octopath Traveler?
Oh, so close. It was going to be Bravely Default.
Oh, man, it was close.
You were really close, though. That was a noble effort. That gets it pounded.
Thank you.
That was a good try. So Bravely Default and or Bravely Second, because of the new game, I'm like, I'm not sure.
Bravely Second's correct. Before Bravely Second, the third first default.
Bravely, whatever. Anyway, so the Bravely series in general, again, just has phenomenal tracks. Really, all of them are good in their own way, but are they good enough? I think that nostalgia might put Legend of Dragoon ahead of Bravely in my mind, which isn't exactly a good reason.
Right.
But maybe it's reason
But it's enough. In this case, it could be reason enough.
Maybe that's all it has to be. So we will tentatively slot Legend of Dragoon in for number 9.
I mean, we could always, too, if you like, in the process of us going through this and we discover one, they're like, no, wait, change my mind. We can retroactively go back.
Oh, yeah, we're going to.
Once it's only locked in, after we complete, we say what our number one is.
And many video game franchises do this all the time where they retcon their own material.
Exactly.
So if they can do it, we get to do it too.
There we go. This is that song that I was talking about, that the menu theme of Legend of Dragoon reminded me from Tropic Thunder. It's Sadness Part 1 by Enigma.
Oh my God, that's very, very similar. Wow. What is this from?
Tropic Thunder. It's the fake trailer that plays at the beginning about the movie where Tobey Maguire and Robert Downey Jr.'s characters are gay priests.
That's amazing. I love it. I really like it.
I do too. It's a good song.
Oh my God.
That's what
an incredible example of your brain's gray matter making a fascinating connection. Oh, that is stellar.
Okay, so we've got our number 10. And I still need to do my number 9.
Oh, you didn't already pick
Okay,
it?
so I got my Red Dead Redemption sitting at my number 2. It was my number 10, sorry. Of my mentions, after talking this through and going, I'll make this quick because I feel like I can easily make this pick now.
I have to watch Tropic Thunder now.
It's a great
I've
movie.
Never
It's one of
seen
my
it.
What?
I've never seen Tropic
Oh
Thunder.
my God, it's one of my
Is it
favorite
good?
movies. It's so funny. It's
Sure.
so funny. I love it.
Tobey Maguire's in it?
For just that trailer.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Because it's like they're all actors and stuff like that, so they played fake trailers for these fake movies that they were in and everything like that. So that was the one that Robert Downey Jr.'s character Kirk Lazarus.
I see.
Is,
Kirk Lazarus. What a fun name.
It's pretty funny. I highly recommend you watch it. Let's see.
Is it on Netflix?
It might be. If not, I had the DVD. You can borrow it.
Okay. Yeah, I have the DVD is a term that you don't
I
really
bought it
hear
so
from
long
people
ago.
anymore.
This was only on DVD. It didn't have the Blu-ray yet.
Someday we'll have to talk about it on Team Chit Chat. I'm trying to stall, so feel free to cut
Sure.
me off at any time you need it. I feel so proud of myself in a very snobbish way that most of the Studio Ghibli's finest films, I own most of the DVDs from before Disney got a hold of the distribution rights for
look at
Studio
you.
Ghibli in North America, meaning that I have all of the original dubs in English, which are far superior to the dubs Disney did. I'm still mad that Ponyo came out in the US and was exclusively distributed by Disney because I feel like it could have had such a better voice cast if they had just branched out and gone in a non-Disney direction.
Okay, so trying to lock in this number 9. I still have...
Christian Bale voiced one of the people from one of the Studio Ghibli movies.
Really?
He voiced Howl from Howl's Moving Castle.
How about that?
And I tell that to people all the time and they never believe me.
Fun little tidbit
He's
of
on
trivia.
there. Yeah.
How about that? How about
Kate
them apples?
Blanchett was an ocean goddess from Ponyo.
I love Kate Blanchett. She's
Yeah,
a great
I do
actress.
too. But I still don't think she should have voiced that ocean goddess.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Take that, Kate. Yeah, like she's gonna care.
I don't know. This one biting review gets to her. That's what breaks through the shell. Okay, so the other ones that I'm kind of thinking about here, honestly, since we talked about it more, I'm kind of thinking of maybe still potentially. Maybe Donkey Kong Country does still make this list.
Oh my gosh, we've made no progress at all.
No.
We've
It
talked
just might be
ourselves
my
into
number 9.
circles.
Or I might bump Red Dead up to number 9 and have number 10 be Donkey Kong Country. Because it does... This is where it gets hard still.
I know, it's so hard.
It is really
I feel
hard.
like the top 3 are going to be so much easier.
So much easier. That's what I mean.
After
this number
rat
9,
race here at the bottom.
It's locked in for me, and I know exactly.
We just should have done
so
top
confident.
100.
Oh my God, no!
We
We'd be
should've
here for
each
that. Would
done-
just be the next 100 episodes.
It would be.
Man, we would have had our content planned out so
Can
well.
you imagine a better scenario?
No, I really can't. That would have been
We should
amazing.
just do that.
I think I might have to do that because I can't make a strong case. Deus Ex Human Revolution, yes, I love its song Icarus. I think it's a great main theme to have. It's an incredibly powerful piece. It sounds really good, especially when it's tied with the trailer. But it's one that I will listen to. It's been a long time since I've listened to it. Donkey Kong Country, I went back and listened to today to refresh my memory. I've gone back within the last couple months. I can definitely say for sure and listen to it as well. So maybe I do need to give that one. My only point of contention with it is Horizon Zero Dawn. And that is the one that I am kind of really justifying if I cut it out completely or not. Because Horizon Zero Dawn is great, has fantastic score. Aloy's theme is one of the best themes there is, I think, for a video game and to represent a character. Again, very indicative of the character of Aloy. And I love that. City on the Mesa, fantastic track as well. That really fits in the theme of that city that I'm now blanking on.
That's the one that has like, it's kind of Aztec inspired, isn't it? The location.
Meridian. That's the song, the city that I'm thinking of that it's going to. And yeah, so City on the Mesa, very Aztec theme, or the kind of theme, that sound to it. And so I really appreciate those two tracks. But also, it's like a 4-hour long soundtrack. And aside from those two, and then maybe a couple battle tracks and a couple other ones that are more like tribal songs that it has in there, for like the Nora and everything, like these drum circle songs and everything, which are really cool. Aside from those, nothing else immediately jumps to mind. Whereas I think Donkey Kong Country does have, even though, yes, it's not one I go back and listen to over and over, it does have those strong ties to the game itself. Mm-hmm. So I think, yes, I've talked myself back in. I'm locking it in. For real. I promise this time. Number 10, Donkey Kong Country. Number 9, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay. Wow.
So what's your number?
You did it.
So here's a question then. We've been going for about an hour.
Oh my God. We're never going to make any progress. We've made it through 2.
I know my next 2 to get us through number 7. Should we stop here and go ahead and save numbers 8 and 7 for the next one and make this a 4-episode series?
I say we make it a 4 or
more.
A 4 or more, simply because this is all on me. I'm struggling so hard.
Well, no, and that's totally fine. Like, I was struggling too, and like, I think now I'm finally set in those 2 picks. But this is what I mean. I wanted to try this format of doing it because it's, we could sit here and talk
really
these all day, but just in the effort of trying to keep our episodes on their average hour-ish runtime, that's the only reason why I'm saying that, like, we cut it short. But I would sit here all night and talk soundtrack.
I mean, yet another one of the problems. I was just looking at it on my list and thinking, oh, should I cut that one? And then I looked at the track list and I was like, I just feel like I can. And it was the Child of Light soundtrack.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we actually may have featured a track from Child of Light either on the first or second of the soundtrack episodes we ever did. And just to kind of circle back to that real quick, because if it does get cut, I at least want people to hear it just once. So this is Dark Creatures, which is one of the standard battle themes from Child of Light, which goes to show how hard it's like Cœur de Pirate, which is it's very French Canadian. Yeah. So I do sincerely apologize for the undoubtedly terrible pronunciation on her name. But the soundtrack as a whole is so stellar, and this is just one of the, again, like Scrub Lord tracks.
Okay. Loving the string. Loving it tied with the piano. Ooh.
Right?
That piano.
It's so good.
It's killer.
It's amazing. How could I not put this in, right?
Yeah.
Hang on. It's about to get better.
Cool. Let me look at that. That's a solid track right there.
It's amazing.
But again, is it the track or is it the soundtrack as a whole? That's the question.
See, the thing is, I think maybe when we last talked about it, I probably, if I know me, and I could be wrong about this, but I think I probably featured the song Jupiter's Lightning, which is my personal favorite. So I probably featured Jupiter's Lightning, but Dark Creatures had to be a top contender up there, because partially maybe because you hear it so much in game, but also because it's rock solid. Mm-hmm. It's got a beautiful blend of strings and piano that my heart just can't get over.
And that's a great combination.
It is. It's a killer combination, and I love that it is actual orchestral live instruments. There's really just kind of no beating that in my mind. So it's like, how could I possibly cut that from the list? And yet, if I continue at this pace, I'm going to wind up with a list of 14, not with 10. So that's where I'm running into so much of this struggle bus. And I feel like I'm going to have to take a weekend
Just
to
listen.
figure
I was
it
like
out.
listening through all these over the last couple of days, like going back, replaying them, finding, like listening through the whole thing again, like just trying to run it through that checklist. Does this hit? Like, and that is the thing about Horizon. It has a lot of great songs, but that one, the game itself, like it's my number 2 game on my top 10 list. But it's because of the game. It's because of the gameplay. It's because of the characters. Music is an incredible support to it all, but on its own. And it sounds like I'm dragging these, but I'm not because they're still so good.
Again, none of these are drags except for that Ocarina of Time shit.
That's the only one.
That's the only drag.
So it hurts. It hurts so bad to not have it on there because I love.
It really is like
do love the
deciding
soundtrack.
which of your children to murder.
Yeah.
It's like I can't do it.
But I will really quick, just since we didn't play anything from it. Bonus Room Blitz is the one from Donkey Kong Country that I wanted to highlight really quick. And again, it's got an extended 30-minute cut of this song. But this is the one, when I was hearing it, I was like, oh man, it's coming all back. I remember playing this as a wee child.
A wee lad.
And just loving it. So I just want to play a little bit of this one real fast. That little melody right there. In
You
the
just
head.
can't get over it.
Stuck in there, can't get over it.
Ooh. Like that little sitar
I know, it's nice, right?
and or keyboard.
I mean, it's all electronic.
Yeah.
But then it adds in the monkey noises.
Eh,
It's like the noises that Donkey Kong makes, and I love it so much. It's
is.
great. It's joyful. It's cheerful. It's wonderful. David
makes
Wise,
you think
you're a
of
magician.
bananas.
Exactly. So there we go. So we've accomplished 2 slots.
You've accomplished basically nothing.
We made some great progress. But think about all the other games but that's the great thing. We locked this in, but think of how many other soundtracks we talked about in this episode and how much musical ground we've covered.
Gosh, I wonder how we're gonna do it.
It's gonna be
and
it's
when
gonna
I
be
say
a tough fight.
we, I mostly mean me because I'm like,
Well, I mean, and there's still
wow.
time. I'm still like, this is still slight. Like, I am 99% sure on the rest of my list, but up until we lock it down, I could still be reminded of another one that I forgot or left out or something like
I
that.
think my personal homework leaving from here that I'm going to do tonight is I do want to give a full listen again to the entirety of the Halo 3 ODST soundtrack because I remember loving it, but I really want to go back and critically listen to it as a whole again just to see how it stacks up because it could easily be top 10 material. I just need like a full refresher
know
on
exactly
from
where it
beginning
sits.
to end. Is it just the handful of tracks that I'm addicted to, or is it the entirety that makes a full art piece?
Very nice.
It's tough stuff, man.
It's really
This
hard
is
stuff.
tough
This
stuff.
is what I mean. Like, this is so much harder than picking the top 10
This
games.
is impossible.
But it's just, it's hard to pick this stuff through because there is just literally so many great music, so much great music that comes out of the world of video games, and it's
like
just
ripping your own fingernails off.
It really
How are we
is.
supposed to do this?
it really is. It's difficult.
Why did we even think this would be a good idea?
Because like we've talked about soundtracks so much, and I was very curious to see how many of the soundtracks that we've even talked about before and featured on our soundtrack episodes would be brought into this list,
Yeah.
because those weren't necessarily talked about in these are our favorites of all time.
It
We're
was
just
just
one like we're
interesting
currently
ones.
enjoying, or
Yeah.
yes, had an interesting sound because we did highlight the single like tracks in it and be like, this is the track I wanted to bring to the table.
I mean, prime example, I think I had previously highlighted a track from Celeste that I did because it matched the tone of its particular scene so well, but that if you listen to it on its own, I think it was the track called Anxiety. It's not the kind of music that you would listen to
Oh, yeah.
on the regs, like on a chill day. If I were really looking at the Celeste soundtrack and thinking these are tracks that I love, Resurrection would be number 1 on that list, and yet that's not the track I featured.
Right. So, we'll continue to narrow down this list, but to recap, number 10 for me is Donkey Kong Country by David Wise. Your number 10 is Final Fantasy VIII.
It's Final Fantasy VIII.
All right. My number 9 is Red Dead Redemption 2. And your number 9,
Maybe The Legend of Dragoon.
There we go.
See.
We'll say that for now. But we really hope that everybody has enjoyed this rundown of all these different soundtracks as we take on the monumental task of ranking
sorry
our
it was
top
a little
10.
all over the place, but we can't help it.
I've had a
We
blast.
can't help
I'm
it.
sorry. I'm sorry if it was all over the place. I had a blast.
I'm having
talking
so
about-
much fun. This is
I don't
great.
even care.
Yeah, screw order. We don't need that. We're just gonna ramble about
Just
stuff that
going
we
on.
like.
And so we're gonna continue this on. After our episode 200 is when we'll circle back around to this, give us a little bit more time to lock down these picks. But we, of course, would love to know what some of your favorite soundtracks of all time are. So please share those with us, either across
please
social
do.
media.
This is something
we're
we
always
love.
looking for new. We even
Yes.
have a soundtrack channel on our Discord solely dedicated to soundtracks.
Yeah.
So please give us new music to listen to because we are always looking out for it. You can do that by sending us an email at teamchatpodcast@gmail.com, writing us a note on the social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, joining our Discord server, talking about it with us there, leaving it in the comments below this YouTube video. There are lots of ways to get in touch with us and let us know your thoughts on it, and we would love to hear from you all. But before we go, we do have to do our soundtrack spotlight for the day. More music coming at you.
What could we possibly pick?
It's a good one. I
Did you
actually
pick
just
one?
brought it up
Okay,
on the
I'm
Discord
ready.
the other day because I discovered that this exceptional track from Jedi Fallen Order that played during the first gladiator pit fight that you have in the game. It was different from Star Wars music because it wasn't an orchestral score. It was an actual song. Cal, as he's even walking into the pit, is like, "Hey, I recognize this band." I had no clue until they published the official music video on the EA Star Wars YouTube page that the band performing the song was none other than the Mongolian rock band The Who.
And that's spelled
H-U.
H-U.
And they are amazing.
They're amazing.
They're an amazing group because it's basically combining hard rock with Mongolian instruments and Mongolian throat singing. It's incredible.
The
But they
lead
perform-
singer has been very famous for many years for being top tier at this craft of Mongolian throat singing.
Right.
He's next level.
Next level. And this song, Sugan Isana, is next level as well. So enjoy this masterpiece of a song that, as I said in the Discord, kicks so much ass. Sugan Isana by The Who from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. But until next time, everybody, that concludes this episode of Team Chat Podcast. Come back for episode 200.
Oh my God.
Can't believe it. Here
Can't
we are.
believe it.
And for another great, fun gaming topic, we will see you then. Until next time, stick around for the song.